Happy Tuesday and welcome to the Wolff Den. I'm Matt Wolff, founder and CEO of Ticket Time Machine. The Wolff Den is presented by Win Again Academy. Mark Moyer doing some great things with his platform, having networking events and working with professional athletes, which is going to be a good segue for our conversation today. Check out winagainacademy.com. Happy to welcome Brandon of Brandon Sports Talk to the Wolff Den. Brandon, how is everything going?
It's going great.
For those in the audience who don't know who you are, just give us a brief introduction, and then we'll get into everything.
So my name's Brandon Pate. I started the podcast about in December of last year, but then, of course, when pandemic happened, I switched over to just doing interviews.
Okay, so you had a podcast. It's called Brandon Sports Talk, and it started out as a podcast where you weren't just doing interviews. What were you doing on the podcast?
I was doing like sports videos. Like I would go to like your local like football game, your local high school football game, and just like record like little highlight clips for them, you know? And then obviously pandemic happened, no sports. I was like, oh, what do I do? Then I was like, well, I have this podcast. I have a YouTube channel. And I didn't know at the time, obviously sports was going to be back. So it's like, what do I do? Let me just interview college coaches and stuff. And then all of a sudden things started leading to one another that like I've had college coaches come on, sports business owners, professional athletes come on, people working in professional sports come on also.
So how did you decide to start the podcast in the first place? Forget about the interview portion of it, but just what made you want to start Brandon Sports Talk and how did it happen?
So a good friend of mine, he has his own YouTube channel. It's called WJG Sports. And I actually was featured on there like for my video work. Like I said, I was a videographer. Then I was like, wait, if he can use my work, obviously my work must be good enough. Let me start my own like kind of sports videography. And then that's why I started Brandon Sports Talk, was from, of course, being featured on WJG Sports.
Okay, yeah, it's a good way to start. And what are you doing when you're not recording and working on the show? Is this a full-time job? Is it something that's monetized? What takes up your day? I know you're very busy on, as we talked earlier, very busy on all the interviews and editing and getting it out there. Is there anything else that you do, or is this all you're working on?
This is everything I'm working on. And yes, I am monetized. But obviously, if you know anything about YouTube, it's very tricky to start making money and stuff and actually receiving it coming in.
Right. So a lot of that has to do with, first of all, getting set up with the channel, getting followers, and then being broadcast elsewhere. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. And did you know you were always going to be involved with sports?
Yes, I knew from a young age I was going to always be involved in sports, but I didn't know that it would be like podcasts, because I did think, obviously, if you would have talked to me before pandemic, I would have said, oh yeah, I would still be doing sports photography, which I still do it, but I just do it more on the free time versus going out to every game and stuff.
So before your podcast started, you were a sports photographer.
Mm-hmm. I had a sports photography business called Brandon Sports Photography.
And now you're still doing that, the events are sort of coming back. I don't know, some don't have fans, some do, but it seems like you probably will be able to continue to do that. Is that something that you're looking forward to doing?
Yes, I actually was at a game yesterday.
What game was that?
It was a local high school football game, as they just started back recently.
Crazy to think that they just started football. College football is this weekend. College football starts this weekend. Do you have a favorite sport that you grew up playing? And then also, what's your favorite sport to watch and talk about today?
Well, I never got to be able to play sports due to I have a disability. So obviously I wasn't able to play sports, but I enjoy watching football and basketball. And I've just recently got into like watching more like women's hockey and stuff like that.
Yeah, and that's we'll talk about that, but it's probably more because of the people that you've been talking to and trying to support them and get some more information about them for your conversations. Do you have any favorite teams and players? Where are you located?
I'm located in North Carolina, an
Okay.
hour from Raleigh. And my favorite teams are, of course, the Pittsburgh Steelers, who I'm actually going to see a game this Friday. I'm going to their preseason game versus the Panthers.
Wow.
And also, I like to watch the Golden State Warriors, even though they haven't been so well this year and
Yeah.
in years previous. But I enjoy watching the Golden State Warriors, and I'm a big Tar Heels fan and NC State fan.
Any favorite players?
Ryan Switzer, Todd Gurley, Tyler Hansbrough, when he was back at Carolina, he was one of my favorite players.
Yeah, Psycho Tyler. That's what they called him, right? Well, I'm going to be in Chapel Hill this weekend for a wedding. My friend's getting married in Chapel Hill, so excited to get up there. It's a beautiful, beautiful city, obviously with a lot of history with Carolina and the whole Tobacco Road, Duke, NC State. So definitely looking forward to that. Let's talk about the podcast. You've had some pretty high-profile people join the show. How do you get guests for the show, and what do you look for when you're trying to figure out who you want to have on the show?
So first, how I get guests is I use LinkedIn a lot to connect with a lot of people that work in professional sports. And even I have connected with some business owners such as you, but I more use Instagram to get the professional athletes that you've seen on my show. All of them, 99% of them, have come from Instagram.
And just reaching out via private message.
Mm-hmm. And I always have to wait sometimes because obviously I don't have that blue check mark like a lot of people have. So sometimes your message might go into your request folder. So what I do is, especially if, let's say, for the Buffalo Beauts, let's use them for example, I interview maybe 3 players from the Buffalo Beauts that see my message. And maybe I might have sent other messages to other players. So once I have them on, at the end of the show, I'm like, hey, can you talk to blah, blah, blah? See if she maybe got my message, just to put a bug in there and be like, oh, let me check, my requests. And all of a sudden, sometimes they have to scroll down and all of a sudden my name pops up in there.
Yeah. And you've had some pretty good athletes and coaches. It seems like you do a lot. You do a lot of women interviews, which is great. We want to propel and uplift the women's sports. What's the difference between interviewing a player versus a coach, maybe a male versus a female? How do you prepare any differently? Do you find that the conversations go differently?
I find that most of the time they do go differently depending on, of course, your experience. So if you're let's say a recent coach that might have only went maybe to one other school, you're not going to have I'm not going to be able to talk that much about you unless if you're let's say, or unless if you're a very person let's say Roy Williams, who he's only been at Carolina besides, of course, Kansas. He has a lot to talk about versus, let's say, you go to East Carolina, who that coach might only have been there. I can only use what experience she's had at East Carolina versus, let's say, Mark Richt, who he went to Georgia, Miami, so I can use Miami's experience, Georgia's experience for him. Same thing with players. If a player only went to one particular team, I only have that one particular team to kind of go off of, but I kind of have the same questions written out for every player, just worded a little bit differently.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of times you want to know the same things for the players because they're in sort of the same world. Have you reached out to Roy Williams and Mark Richt? And I mean, do you go for the goal? Because I reach out to everybody. I even people I know I'll probably never hear back from, but I definitely reach out to them, whether it's on Instagram or LinkedIn or through the team or their personal website.
Yes, I have in the past, but I haven't reached, obviously, back out to them. I have reached out to Mike Krzyzewski whenever he was at Duke, and they flat down said no because obviously I didn't have big enough following that I had. Plus, obviously, he's a big time player. I mean, a big time coach. That obviously he's not gonna be able to take the time out of his day to come on Brandon Sports Talk. Versus, he might be able to, like, if I was ESPN, obviously he would be able to.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's something to be said for people who take some time out for the little guy. And I mean, I consider the Wolff Den the little guy, so I appreciate people who do take the time out when I know that they can get interviewed and get media coverage from a lot bigger, I guess, media outlet, if that's what you want to call it, a media outlet, and with a lot more followers. Following is not something that I don't really check too much anymore. I don't look at it. I just kind of want to bring people on, help share their story, introduce them to a new network, because no matter who you are, I have people in my network who've never heard of you or don't know exactly what your story is. So I think there's something to be said about the people who, don't just look at how many followers you have. And you have a decent amount of following too, right? How many YouTube subscribers do you have?
I have a little over 1.2K.
Okay. Yeah, that's a lot of people watching it. And the thing is, every time someone watches it, they can talk to someone else, or when they start clicking on it, then other people see it. So it very easily can grow. And that's within 2 years so far?
Yes.
Any other plans? Like, what's in the future for Brandon Sports Talk? What are we going to be seeing from you in the next 12 to 18 months?
Well, I want to, of course, build a website where you can find all of my interviews one place. So obviously you can easily find like some of the interviews, like Kaylee Fracken, who has been the biggest interview I've had, which her interview is at 3.2K, which is the highest I've had. You can find that easily without just like searching up Kaylee Fracken.
Oh, I didn't. I saw some comments here. So we got a big supporter of the show, Brent. That is wonderful. Being able to monetize it is, it's a goal. We certainly would like to monetize, but it's not like the core of why I do it. Ticket Time Machine is really the core of why I do this. Big fan fight at a recent Steelers game. I didn't see that fight. Have you seen some of the fights that are out there?
Actually, that
Rams fight.
The fight that's down there. Yes, I did see it.
The Steelers one or the Rams one?
No, the Steelers one. I saw that one.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, I don't understand. My first question is, where in the heck was the security? That was like a 5-minute brawl. And it wasn't, there's no way people didn't see it. Every time there's a fight, there's always everyone's watching and pointing. And that guy was just, look, he was probably instigating it, but he got pounced on by like 4 or 5 people. I stay away from that stuff. Me and Brent are not huge UNC Tar Heels fans, and he's got 7 followers on Twitter, which is, he's new on Twitter. Doesn't really know how to work it. Do you have a favorite social media? When you're on YouTube, you're on Facebook, you're on Twitter, Instagram. Do you have one that you enjoy engaging with more or posting on more?
I enjoy posting on Twitter a lot, but more importantly, I do like Instagram, because that is where most of the professional athletes that you've seen on my show, 99% of them have come from Instagram.
Yeah, why is that? I enjoy Twitter more than Instagram. Why do you think that they're bigger on Instagram, have a bigger presence on Instagram? Because Instagram to me seems more like I guess I understand. Instagram to me seems more like a one-way relationship. Like they're giving you their photos and their content. You can message with them, but I can't reply to you with a photo or a GIF or GIF, whatever you want to pronounce it. I prefer Twitter myself. But you also have every episode you do a graphic with, a picture of them and your standard picture. You do change the color up, which I think is very nice. Who did that? The caricature of you?
It was somebody from like one of those like Etsy websites or Art Fantastic websites. It was like $25 and stuff. So I was like, okay. let me
Hey,
go.
it's great. I love it. I use my animated photo all the time. Funny enough, I found my animated person on Instagram. It's called Podcast Covers, and they did a great job with. I think they did a great job. I hope it looks like me and not close enough when I have my big beard on.
I actually got it from one of my interviewees, Sports Stories with Denny Lennon, who I always stay in contact with. He's the one that actually got me in contact with the people.
Okay. What advice do you have to someone who wants to start a podcast? I mean, it's not an easy thing to do. A lot of people have podcasts, but also my understanding is that a lot of people start a podcast and then they kind of just walk away from it.
Well, first, I would give the advice on if you're going to just do like if you're just going to talk and stuff, make sure you have at least, I would say, more than 10 episodes, because then obviously when you have more than 10 episodes, people are going to like very tune in. And obviously, you got to keep up the consistency. So I'm on a schedule where I post Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday podcast episodes where it's just me, myself, and I sitting in front of the camera talking about an episode. And I found that if you post consistently, you'll actually see more people view it more. And also you'll in your mind you'll be like, okay, I have this episode I need to film. It needs to come out on Tuesday or it needs to come out on Thursday. At You have to have a specific time. I always say I always post at 12 p.m. EST because that's what time everybody takes lunch pretty much. So obviously you want to like also have episodes where it's not too long, but it's long enough that obviously you can watch it during your lunchtime while you're eating and stuff.
Yeah, and you handle all of this yourself, similar to me, doing a show all by yourself and editing and posting and getting the guests and then inviting them and setting it all up. It's a lot. It's takes up a good part of your time. Any plans to bring someone on eventually to help you out with that, or is this just something you really enjoy doing, that side of it?
I enjoy doing it, and obviously I'm growing bigger and bigger. So obviously whenever I get big enough that it's like, okay, like at a certain point it's like, okay, I get like tons of messages where sometimes like people will message me and I won't even see it until the next morning maybe. And I'm like, okay. Sometimes I'm like, it would really help to have somebody, like as a PR person kind of like do it. But then also I've run into other PR people that like whenever I have to request for another person to come on that has a PR person, it's kind of like, okay, I can do this myself where like I can easily like with you, I was easily like, okay, let's do it versus I don't want you to go to another person and be like, oh, let me check with his schedule versus you just come straight to me, you ask me, and I'm like, okay, I can do it, or oh, can you like push it back a few days? I have like a lot of interviews and stuff. And that's what I found really helps the most.
Yeah, who's been most supportive of your venture? And who's been helpful?
Sports Stories with Denny Lennon has been very helpful as he has gave me a lot of interviewees, such as Sam Logano I got from him and other people that he knows that I've also interviewed that like book authors and stuff. Also, a few other people is obviously my friends have been very helpful and stuff. Some of my family has.
Yeah, that's great. What about followers? You have 1,000, 1.1 or two. What do you have a goal of the type of followers you want to get to?
Obviously, I would love to get that silver play button and stuff, but I know that in my mind, I have a lot of work ahead of me to obviously achieve the silver play button and stuff.
What's a silver play button?
It's on YouTube where you have over 100,000 subscribers.
Okay. And what does that get? Is that just acknowledges that you have a lot of subscribers? Do you get any extra benefits for that?
You get like other benefits and stuff, but it also just acknowledges like only a few have only reached higher than that and stuff. And obviously they give you like this plaque that says congratulations it will say like Brandon Sports Talk on it and stuff like that. And
Huh.
obviously, I've seen some, but I'm like, okay, I'll reach it one day.
Yeah, I think you can. I mean, you keep doing what you're doing. You just never know who that one listener is or one guest that could really propel you to the next level. It sounds like it's similar to a check mark. I mean, they've stopped doing check marks, and I don't know. I don't know. There's plenty of people who have check marks who probably don't need one or deserve one, and there's probably people who don't have one who should have one. I don't think we're in the level of that yet. You kind of need to be we need to be. I include this myself in that crew to be more well known, but it's kind of like with a business. If you're a business, you want to sort of verify that this is a legitimate business. There could be different types of check marks. A lot of it's just about validation. I mean, hey, I could say I have X amount of Instagram followers. Is YouTube if you can just choose between YouTube and Instagram to have 100,000 followers, which would be more beneficial for you?
I would say YouTube.
YouTube, and that's because of the monetization of it.
It's because of the monetization, and also that's where a majority of my videos, like if you watch my videos, you'll only find them on YouTube. I no longer really post on Spotify and Apple just because I'm doing so many interviews and so many podcast episodes that I kind of like, okay, it's kind of hard to keep track of. So I always tell people, if you want to find my episodes on Brandon Sports Talk, go to YouTube.
Yeah, it's interesting because the Wolff Den is live on LinkedIn, it's live on Facebook, and it's live on YouTube. But I don't really have any subscribers on YouTube, so I use YouTube as my archive. I can go to my YouTube channel, and that's where I see all the videos, similar to what you're talking about having a website for. And your channel would have all your videos too. So it's very easy to find that. But it sounds like people are watching your videos more on YouTube. If you go to my archives, you'll see 2 views, 3 views. People are watching it on LinkedIn and Facebook because that's really where I'm pushing the people to do so. So I got to work on it. I probably need someone else to help me with that and work on the YouTube presence. But I think it's just more about sharing stories with people, and I think the other stuff will follow. I've had some pretty big names on. We had Justin Guarini from American Idol on. We have some pretty exciting guests coming up. I'm not going to announce them yet because we haven't secured it, but we're in good position for it. Let's talk about who you have coming up that people could look forward to, that you're excited about. Obviously, we're excited about all of our guests, but are there a couple of names that really stand out to you?
Well, yesterday I had on Delaney, who she just retired from. She's a Canadian softball player. She just retired. She was a big name person that's come on. Kaylee Fracken, she's also come on. Taylor and Hunter Kersey has made an appearance not once but twice on my show. Other people, like I'm sure you know, the Orlando Magic's co-founder Pat Williams, he's come on my show. Other people like in professional sports, whether they're PA announcers, some like minor league people have a lot of minor league people have come on my show, and a few players, like I've had some rugby players recently come on. A Paralympic swimmer by the name of Matt Louie, he's come on, who he's right now in Tokyo competing. And obviously, I'm looking to get people like Jessica Long, who she's a U.S. Paralympic swimmer, to come on. I've been in contact with her manager and stuff, but sometimes it's a little hard to kind of secure those.
That's wonderful. We had Joe, he's a Paralympic performer, and he's in Tokyo right now. Really excited to find out how they do, and hopefully they win. It's just a great stories, the Paralympics, and we're going to have someone from the Special Olympics on. I think it's next week. They have some big games coming up in Orlando next year, and it's just really inspiring to listen to the stories of the Paralympic people, even the Olympic people too. We've had some Olympic athletes on the Wolff Den also, but the Paralympic and the Special Olympic really motivational and inspirational from, at least in my opinion. I think it's really, really good to share their stories. And Pat Williams, that's a great get. I mean, that might be the biggest name that you've had of them all, and he was involved with the 76ers as well, wasn't he?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, my wife is a Philly girl, so she's big 76ers and all of that, all the teams that are up there. I don't mind them. I don't really like the Phillies or the Flyers, but I don't mind pulling for the Sixers and the Eagles as long as it doesn't interfere with the other teams that I prefer to win. If you could have been a professional athlete, do you have have you ever thought about, hey, if I could pick any sport to play and any team to play on, have you ever thought about that?
Yes, I would definitely pick football, and obviously I would pick the Steelers. If I could get drafted to the Steelers, that would be a dream come true, as I've always grown up a Steelers fan.
What position would you like to play?
I would probably play running back, but they would probably put me like either like defensive tackle or like on the line just because of my size and stuff. But I would love to play running back.
It's always hard to tell. Like I slouch a lot. My chair is wrong. My Brent always gives me trouble for that. I'm actually 6'4", so I'm a pretty big guy. How tall are you?
About 5'7", somewhere near there.
Okay. Yeah, it's tough. I think I'd like to be a basketball player. I grew up playing basketball in the NBA. I think you get a little bit more notoriety too. It's easier to stand out. You get to see these people as opposed to, football where you're wearing a helmet and, I don't know. Some people couldn't pick other people out of a lineup because they only recognize them as a football player. Do you watch a lot of sports movies? I love sports movies. Huge. I was at the Field of Dreams baseball game. I guess that was 2 weeks ago now. Do you have any favorite sports movies?
I do watch a lot of sports movies. All American. It's a TV show. I enjoyed watching that. Along with The Replacement, I've enjoyed watching that a few times. And other ones like The Blind Side. That was one of my all-time favorite movies.
That was on my flight last night. The Blind Side. Great movie, great story. The Replacements is Keanu Reeves. When they go on strike, yeah, that's a pretty funny movie. Who's your favorite player on that? Do you like the two twin bodyguard offensive tackles? Those guys were pretty good.
The quarterback's my favorite.
Yeah. He's not the starting quarterback, Keanu, right? The other guy was nasty. A lot of people like that, in sports, kind of when you get to a certain level, they kind of have that arrogance and ego about them. You obviously talk to a lot of people in sports. I haven't come across anyone who's been that way, but that might be because the people who are like that wouldn't come on the show. What's been the most surprising thing for you with regards to the guests that you had on? Speaking with professional athletes and people at high levels in the sports world.
Well, most of them are pretty nice. There are some that obviously it's like, why are you even coming on if you want to be like this way, So most of them that are that way don't really make an appearance on my show. But most of the interviews that I've had are pretty nice, and I always try to keep in contact with them, at least maybe once or twice every now and then.
Yeah. I find that people like, athletes, people in the entertainment world, they like to talk about themselves. And it's a good way to promote your business too. Like I said, you're going to have people in your audience who've just never heard of who they are or don't really know as much about them as they would like you to know, whether they're promoting something, whether they're championing for some type of cause. I think it's a great platform for people to join. Ever think about expanding it outside of sports, or is it always going to be a sports thing?
It's always going to be a sports thing because that's where I find my passion in. And that's where I've realized that I can talk the most about. Because obviously, whenever I started, before I ever thought of Brandon Sports Talk, there was some ideas of like doing like sports teams. But then whenever it came down to like trying to like plan out, it was like, okay, well, like for example, let's say Carolina Tar Heels. I was like, okay, I can only talk about the Carolina Tar Heels and these particular topics. And I was like, okay, that's only like, let's say nine episodes. Okay, what else am I gonna do? Versus how Brandon Sports Talk is I talk about all sports, and I try to talk about, of course, use examples such as you'll see a lot of times where I talk about Georgia Bulldogs, NC State, Carolina, East Carolina, Steelers, the Panthers, Golden State, Charlotte Hornets in the episodes, along with like Milwaukee Bucks, the New York Yankees. I use examples of teams and players whenever I talk about episodes where it's just me, myself, and I, that will draw those people in that are, let's say, Yankees fans, Bucks fans, or Golden State fans. Be like, oh, okay, he's going to use an example talking about Stephen Curry in this particular way, or Todd Gurley in this particular way, or Jalen Samuels.
Yeah. Do you have a bucket list sporting event that you would like to go to that you've never been?
I would love to go to the Super Bowl, but most importantly, I would love to go back to the Steelers because I went before Brandon Sports Talk, but now that I have, of course, the Stadiums series fun facts, where I travel to different stadiums and I go to like different stadiums and do fun facts, I would love to go to like all NFL stadiums, all NBA stadiums, and some MLB stadiums and stuff like that.
So going back to the Steelers, Super Bowl. That would be great. My wife's been to a few Super Bowls. She's been lucky enough to go. And they just had one down here. She was at the Super Bowl down here in Miami. How about guests? Give me 3 guests that you would love to have on if you could have anybody on.
Todd Gurley, Alex Morgan, and Tyler Hansbrough.
Okay. And that actually segues into our final question for you, which we ask of all of our guests. If you could spend a day with anybody, they have to be living and you can't be related to them, who would it be and what would you like to do with them? And we're going to do our best to make it happen for people. We've done some outreach. We've had some great answers. We've had some ridiculous answers, but regardless, we're going to try for everybody.
I would say it would be Todd Gurley and Alex Morgan, because those are the 2 sports people that I've always looked up to the most.
Well, we got to pick one. So if we're picking one, are we going with Gurley or are we going with Alex?
Alex Morgan.
Alex Morgan. Okay, great. And what are you guys going to do? You're going to play some soccer? You're going to play video games she's in a video game. Maybe it would be cool to play a video game with her as a video.
Oh, we would be playing soccer and stuff.
Yeah, great. All right, well, we're going to try and make it happen. Did she retire recently? Or is she
nope,
still playing?
She's still playing.
Okay, great. Well,
that was Carly Lloyd that recently retired.
Yeah, I knew it was someone. Yeah, I mean, they're great. The USA women's soccer has been great. Obviously, they lost the gold medal. But there was a funny video. I don't know if you saw this before we go. It was either on TikTok or maybe it was on Instagram of a Canadian Olympian who was walking in the airport and the metal detector went off. And she was on TikTok. All surprised. Who was that?
It was on TikTok.
And she pulls the metal out of her thing, and then everyone starts going nuts. I thought that was.
She was a swimmer, and I'm actually trying to get her on.
Yeah. Well, I wish you luck. I think she'd be a great guest. So check out Brandon Sports Talk on YouTube. You can find him on Instagram at Brandon Sports Talk. You can find him on Twitter at @talk_Brandon. Really appreciate you coming on. Always good to talk sports with you. And excited to see where you go next. But subscribe to Brandon's Sport Talk on YouTube. Let's help him get to 100,000. And that's it. Anything else I missed?
Nope.
All right. Everyone have a great day. We got some great guests the rest of this week. But we'll talk to you guys soon. Thank you.